What is this garbage you're watching? I want to watch the news.
Are you making headway at least?
This is the news.
I was doing a TV pilot, and we were filming in Northern California, and it was written by Gary DeVore. We played these FBI agents kind of thing. And I get a knock on the door. I've gone through hair and makeup. I've memorized my lines for that day. And I get a knock on the door, and it's the second or third AD. And the guy says, well, Stephen, we've got these rewrites for you. You know, I was like, well, wait a second. I've already memorized my lines. Like, why the rewrites, you know? And he said, well, we talked to the FBI, and they want to make these adjustments. And that was my first kind of, I don't know, introduction to the fact that if you're playing, if the alphabet agencies or any agencies are used, like FBI, certainly CIA, anytime you're doing a film and those letters are involved, and maybe even in cases where they don't use those letters, but they use something similar, they have final approval on what's being said and what's, you know, what you're saying.
Steve Shellen is a Canadian-born actor who found success in Hollywood films like A River Runs Through It and The Bodyguard. But he alleges that when he tried to launch his own production company in Canada, called Lionsgate, his endeavor was sabotaged. To this day, he does not profess to know the who or why behind it.
I had my own bad experience where I was starting a production company and it was stolen from me. My children were threatened and kidnapped. I ended up basically losing everything, including a nice house under the Hollywood sign, a farm up here in Canada. And I was on the run, being tracked and followed, and I was pretty undone by the whole experience. Well, I went in a bar in Beverly Hills one night, and I ran into Gary DeVore, and Gary was friendly as usual. Hey, Steve, how you doing? You know, and I was like, oh, Gary, you wouldn't believe this. And I gave him like the mini version of what I'd gone through. And what was kind of great is that Gary didn't look at me like I was nuts. He didn't discount what I was saying. He just basically agreed with me and said, yeah, well, they can do that if they want. He also told me about a project he was working on that had to do with the war in Panama, and he was divulging stuff or writing about stuff, and that you know, his buddies in the CIA were not happy.
This is 20 years ago, and we know a lot of this now. We did not then, and what this was about was the Medellin cartel sending huge amounts of cocaine into the United States, and the government being aware of it and not taking the stand against it that they might have, and that there was a tremendous amount of money from the Medellin cartel transferring this cocaine into our country that went under the guise of a business deal, I guess, and was put into Panamanian banks while Noriega was in power there with us. And the money was laundered and was spent on insurgency groups, Nicaragua, Sandinistas, all of the things that we now actually know are pretty true. But then there was none of this known, and for reasons that I was unaware of at the time, Gary was aware of all of these things.
Gary DeVore was a successful screenwriter, known for his films like The Dogs of War and Raw Deal, as well as his bizarre disappearance.
It was 1997. He was on his way back to turn a script into the studio that he was going to direct, and it was actually the only time that the finished script, the computer, all of the research was in one place. It was in his car, and he disappeared on his way back. Members of the CIA and the NSA appeared in my home within the first 4 or 5 days, and many other unusual things started happening. I realized that perhaps it was not a typical crime. It only aims in one direction. It aims in the direction that this person was definitely working with the intelligence community. They said, don't you believe he's dead? It's been over a year. And I said, no. If you want me to believe he's dead, give me a body. 9 days later, I was given a body. I was awakened at 7 in the morning. It was Chase Brandon calling me from Langley saying they found the car. They found the car with the body in it. And there was a 3-hour time difference, of course, between New York and LA, and at 10 o'clock, they called me from the sheriff's department in LA to tell me they'd found the car.
Well, they found him a year later or whatever in his truck. The skeletal remains, and then his hands were supposedly thrown in the back of the truck. So I guess that was sending a message to anybody that if you go rogue, or if you go, off the ranch, as they say, or whatever, and you're hitting up against the CIA and what their plans are, then this is what we're going to do. And I guess cutting off the hands is really indicative of, that's his tool, right? His hands.
The mystery of Gary DeVore's fate may linger as long as that of JFK. But it is intriguing that DeVore's disappearance came in 1997, the year after the CIA established its first official Hollywood liaison office. It may have been merely symbolic, but it seemed to portend the coming decade of the 2000s, when the Patriot Act and a U.S.-led global war would dominate the American conscience, as though the U.S. government did not trust its citizens to think critically for themselves. And more importantly, crises would have to unfold cathartically on the big screen, where the heroes of the American intelligence services and military would inevitably fight to defend global freedom. But behind the lies, we must ask ourselves, how much have we swallowed the pill of propaganda, evolved from psychological warfare, a phrase derived from Nazi Germany's Weltanschauungskrieg, worldview warfare?